There's a moment that doesn't feel dramatic at first. No explosion, no argument, no clear ending, just a quiet realization that something about this feels familiar, and not in a good way. It's subtle, almost easy to ignore, but it's there. That feeling that you've been here before. Different person, different situation, same outcome. And at first, you try to explain it away. You tell yourself people are just complicated. Relationships take work. Not everyone is going to understand me. And that's true, but that's not what this is. Because if you're honest, this isn't just happening once, it's happening again and again and again. And every time it happens, you tell yourself the same thing. This one is different, but it never is. Not really. Because the pattern isn't in them, it's in the dynamic. And the dynamic starts with you. Not because you're the problem, but because of how you show up, because of how you love, because of what you tolerate before you even realize you're tolerating it. And this is the part most empaths don't want to look at, because it feels like blame. But it's not blame, it's awareness. And awareness is where everything starts to change. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. And once you can't unsee it, you have a choice. Keep repeating it, or finally understand why it keeps happening. It doesn't start with someone hurting you. That's the part people get wrong. It starts with connection, with chemistry, with that feeling of, this person gets me. And for an empath, that feeling hits deep because you don't connect with everyone. You feel everything. You read everything. So when someone feels right, it doesn't feel casual. It feels significant. And that's where it begins. Because from that moment forward, you start investing. Not just time, not just attention, but energy. Emotional energy. The kind most people don't even notice. You start showing up fully. You listen, you understand, you support, you give, and you don't keep score. Because that's not how you love. But here's what you don't realize. While you're giving freely, the other person is learning something. They're learning how much access they have to you, how much they can lean on you, how much they can take without having to give the same back. And at first, it doesn't feel like taking. It feels like connection. It feels like closeness. It feels like you're building something real. But slowly, without you noticing, the balance starts to shift. You start giving a little more. They start giving a little less. Not intentionally, not always consciously, but it happens. Because you never set a limit. And when there's no limit, people don't stop. Not because they're evil, but because it's easy. And humans follow what's easy. So the dynamic changes. Quietly. Gradually. Until one day, you realize you're the one holding everything together. This is where confusion starts. Because now you feel the imbalance, but you don't understand it. You think maybe they're going through something. Maybe I just need to be more patient. Maybe if I show up more, they'll meet me there. So you give more. You try harder. You become more understanding, more forgiving, more available. And ironically, that's the exact moment things start getting worse. Because now, you're not just giving, you're compensating. You're filling in the gaps they're leaving behind. And the more you fill those gaps, the less they feel the need to. So the distance grows. Not because they're pulling away intentionally, but because you're covering what they're no longer bringing. And this is the trap. Because from your perspective, you're trying to fix it. But from the outside, you're reinforcing it. You're teaching the dynamic that this is okay, that this is normal, that this is how the relationship works. And over time, it becomes exactly that. Normal, expected. And now, If you stop giving, it feels like something is wrong. Not because it is, but because the imbalance has become the baseline. So when you finally pull back, they don't suddenly step up. They feel the loss, and they question you, not themselves. And that's the moment most empaths break. Because now you're not just giving, you're defending why you stopped overgiving. And this is where it really hits. Not when they hurt you, not when they disappoint you, but when you realize you participated in it. Not consciously, not intentionally, but consistently. Through small moments that didn't feel important at the time. Saying yes when you wanted to say no. Ignoring red flags because you saw potential. Excusing behavior because you understood their past. Giving chances that were never earned. Telling yourself they just need time. When deep down, you already knew. That quiet voice inside you, the one you kept overriding, was right the entire time. And that realization is heavy because it forces you to look at something deeper. Not just them, but you. Why did you stay? Why did you give so much without receiving the same? Why did it take so long to recognize the pattern? And the answer isn't simple. It's layered. It's rooted in how you see love, how you learned connection, what you believe makes you valuable. Because for a lot of empaths, love isn't just felt, it's proven through effort, through patience, through sacrifice, through understanding. And that sounds beautiful until it turns into self-abandonment. And this is where most people go wrong again, because once they see the pattern, they swing to the opposite extreme. They shut down. They build walls. They stop trusting. They tell themselves they'll never let anyone get close again. And for a while, that feels like control. It feels like protection. But it's not growth. It's reaction. And reaction is still being controlled by the same pattern, just in a different form. Because the goal was never to become cold. The goal was never to stop caring. The goal was to become aware, to understand the difference between connection and overinvestment, to understand the difference between compassion and self-abandonment, to understand that just because you can understand someone doesn't mean you should stay. And that shift is everything. Because now you start to notice things earlier, not in a paranoid way, but in a grounded way. You notice inconsistency. You notice when effort isn't mutual. You notice when someone only shows up when it benefits them. And instead of explaining it away, you sit with it. You observe it. You let their behavior speak for itself without trying to rewrite the meaning. And that's uncomfortable because it removes the illusion. It removes the hope that if you just try a little harder, things will change. And hope has been your anchor for a long time. But hope without evidence is what kept you stuck. And now, you're starting to see the difference. This is the shift, the real one. Not the moment you leave, not the moment you get hurt, but the moment you understand the pattern. Because once you understand it, everything changes. You stop chasing connection at the cost of yourself. You stop over-explaining, over-giving, overcompensating. You start noticing energy shifts, lack of reciprocity, emotional inconsistency. And instead of trying to fix it, you step back. You allow space. You allow silence. You allow the dynamic to reveal itself without interference. And that alone changes everything. Because now, you're not reacting. You're choosing. You're deciding what you participate in and what you don't. And that's uncomfortable at first because it feels unfamiliar. It feels like you're holding back, like you're not being yourself. But what you're actually doing is finally including yourself in the equation. You're still kind. You're still understanding. But now, There's awareness behind it. There are boundaries behind it. There's a line that didn't exist before. And once that line exists, the pattern can't continue the way it used to. Because the dynamic no longer has access to the same version of you. The version that ignored itself. The version that gave without limit. The version that believed love had to be earned through effort. That version is gone. And in its place is someone who still cares, but also pays attention. Someone who still connects, but also evaluates. Someone who still gives, but only where it's reciprocated. And this is where everything changes. Not because people suddenly become better, but because you become different. You stop being the place where imbalance can grow. You stop being the person who carries everything just to keep something alive. You stop confusing effort with love. And you start recognizing what real connection looks like. It doesn't drain you. It doesn't confuse you. It doesn't make you question your worth. It meets you. Not perfectly, but consistently. And the biggest difference, you don't have to earn it. You don't have to prove it. You don't have to hold it together. It exists. Because both people are showing up. And once you experience that, really experience it, you can't go back. Not because you're bitter, not because you're closed off, but because you finally understand. It was never about meeting the wrong people. It was about repeating the same dynamic with different faces. And now, that dynamic ends with you. Not through force, not through walls, but through awareness, through choice, through finally seeing what was always there and deciding. This is where it stops. And the truth is, most people will never get to this point. Not because they can't, but because they won't look at it this deeply. It's easier to blame. Easier to say all people are the same. Easier to say love just doesn't work out. But you know that's not true. Because you've seen the pattern, you've felt it, you've lived it. And now, you're starting to understand it. And that understanding changes everything. Because now you're not just experiencing relationships, you're aware of them. You're aware of yourself inside them. And that awareness is what breaks the cycle. So the next time something feels off, you won't ignore it. You won't explain it away. You won't rush to fix it. You'll pause. You'll observe. You'll let it reveal itself. And that moment, that quiet pause, is where your power is. Not in controlling the outcome. Not in making someone stay. But in deciding what you accept and what you don't. And once you truly understand that, everything changes. Because the pattern only survives when you're unaware of it. And now, you're not.